Lamer Gamers. This is Simply Travis and
Rowdy 5000.
And we just found a bucket of gold rings after being chased by a frightening hot dog eating anthropomorphic hedgehog that led us past the Green Hill Zone and into the 5th episode of the Lamer Gamers podcast.
You nerd.
Yeah, I am. Today, we're going to talk about Rowdy's Days Gone impressions, Katana Zero, Steamworld Quest, the scary blue hedgehog staring us in the room, piercing through our souls. And Rowdy is going to peer pressure me into buying a PS4 Pro along with some PS5 rumors. For our final topic, we're going to be talking about how Sony looks like it's becoming Nintendo from the 90s. So let's start with Mr. 5000 over here. So what games have you been playing lately?
Okay, so I recently picked up Katana Zero because I saw that on the last, Nintendo Direct, and thought it looked really awesome. It's kind of like Celeste in the way that it's real fast gameplay. If you die, you instantly start at the same spot you were. It's not going to kick you back to the beginning of the level or anything like that. So it's a very rapid paced game. You play as this ninja samurai guy. I haven't made it that far in the story.
Story in it?
There is a story. I don't want to ruin anything, but I haven't made it too far in, but it's pretty crazy story so far. You could do a lot of stealthy things. You can wait for enemies to come up to doors and then swing the doors open, hit them with the door, and then slice into the next character. You could slow down time and reflect bullets back at the enemies. And after every part of the level, it'll actually replay what you did, almost like it's putting together a movie.
Oh, that's
cool.
Haven't
quite figured out why it's doing that yet. But that one's really fun for people who like games like Celeste.
Isn't it trying to you're doing this all in one life, and that's why you had to redo things?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't want to give anything. Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about it. I'm gonna end up giving something away if I talk about it.
So does it play like Beautiful Joe a little bit?
No. Because Beautiful Joe was all about the combos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This is getting in there and taking out the enemies as fast as you can. It's not about combos or anything like that. You don't have any crazy super moves or anything like you would in Beautiful Joe. Just the point is to get in and get out. Basically, any level, you are not supposed to leave any survivors. And that's about all I'm going to say about the story.
Speaking of, the game that I've been playing, I was talking about last time I was going to try to do a review of Guacamelee 2, but work has been crazy, and it's been like the kind of stressful type of weeks where you close your eyes to keep blood from squirting out of them. Your blood pressure is so high, I guess. I haven't played any more of it. I got towards the last level, and I know you were telling me that the ending was really fun, but it was...
I beat it, and it just gets crazier and crazier.
And the last game did, too. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but to me, Guacamelee's 2 end levels are kind of like saying a sentence that there are a lot of the same letters, like Sally sells seashells at the seashore. It's like you tongue-tie your hands as you're playing because you have to jump, press a button, switch to the other reality, do these things, fly across the room, turn into a chicken, buck, 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 jump across the room, hit things, and and then you have to do that for a minute or two straight, and if you mess up, you start over.
Well, the final boss, you actually have to use everything you've learned in the game. Every last move. There are... so in Guacamelee 2, you have some enemies that have force fields that can only be broken by using certain moves.
Yep.
So the final enemy uses every single one of those force fields, which some of them you even have to change into the chicken form and use some of those moves. The last boss was pretty hard, but I did catch on to his pattern pretty quick. So it's not like a Dark Souls kind of thing. If you like Guacamelee 2, you'd like Katana Zero.
Ah, okay.
It's real fast paced like that.
See, that sold me more than the Katana Zero things did, because I I really like Guacamelee. To me, it's like a really good platformer. It feels right. It doesn't feel cheap.
Oh yeah.
And whenever you get through something, you feel good about it. But I mean, it's almost like you're trying to escape death constantly. Speaking of escapes, what you been playing, Rowdy?
I picked up The Escapist 2 because it was on sale on the Switch, and I played The Escapist 1. Wasn't a big fan, but you know, I figured, you know, Escapist 2, it's this time it's multiplayer. So me and a friend of mine plugged it up and started playing, and basically it's this Super Nintendo looking, almost 16-bit type game where
kind of a top-down, almost isometric view.
Yeah, and you try and escape from prison, and there's a few different ways to escape. In the first level, me and this friend of mine, we dug underneath the fence to get out, but to do so, we had to sneak into a building outside the prison where we would start to dig the hole, but then, you know, at nighttime, you have to make sure that you're in your bunk or the prison goes on lockdown. So we had to cover the hole with a desk and come back to it the next day. And then our shovel broke. So then we had to make another shovel. So it's kind of cool in the way that works, but then there's a lot of different scenarios. Like the second scenario we did, you have to escape a prison train. And it's not just, you know, jumping off of it and you're good. There was some DLC that I thought was kind of funny. One of them is basically you have to escape from North Korea.
Oh, that's intense.
Haven't played that one yet, but that looks pretty fun. All in all, it's a really good time waster. I wouldn't say it's the funnest game I've ever played, but I mean, I would sit there. I think we played it maybe hour and a half before we realized it's a good one.
So, random thing, North Korea, not going to get like political or anything. I work with somebody who's actually been to North Korea.
Oh.
And he was telling me that he was a tour guide. And he was telling me that somebody had dropped a stamp of Glorious Leader and stepped on it. And he got put in jail.
Nice.
Yeah, so I could imagine escaping a North Korean prison off of The Escapist 2. I mean, everybody's there. Escapist 2, I mean, the art style kind of reminds me of like a Harvest Moon from like Super Nintendo era, but like hard Harvest Moon. Like he's done some time and then he's going to go farm afterwards. And it's kind of the art style to me. Or like, you know, Link just came up on hard times and got caught with something.
Oh.
You know, he's got illegal weapons.
Magic potions.
Magic potions, man. You gotta watch out for those. So, another game that I've been playing is, one that I've really enjoyed is Steamworld Quest. It is a card-based RPG, and I am pretty much driven to anything that is hand-drawn. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those games that kind of look like the Ubisoft art engines, to where they do the hand-drawn assets, and you put it in a program, and they kind of animate themselves in a way. It's Steamworld Quest Hand of Gilgamesh. And the card battles are good. This is not like Mario, whatever that last Mario was with the cards.
I didn't like that one.
Terrible.
It was awful.
Now, the battling is good. You have 3 characters, and then you eventually get 5 characters, and you're switching out, but you can only use 3 at a time. And you have 8 cards in your deck. So it essentially doles out the cards as you're playing, and you pick which ones. There are regular like attack cards, which are usually like a physical attack or just a low-level attack. And the more low-level attacks you do, build up kind of like mana in a sense.
Okay.
They're little cogs at the top. So like you spend 3 cogs, so 3 regular hits to do a stronger move. And it's really well done. It's well balanced. I've been switching back and forth between characters, and most configurations work. The characters are... The main character to me is the most boring. You're playing as somebody named Armilly. And the characters that she gets after that are more interesting to me. The writing is fun. It kind of makes fun of itself in a way. And There's gonna be lots of little jokes. It's not like a big adventure RPG. That's my only main gripe right now. Is that the RPG itself, the aspects of it are just from the character and card building aspects, and the I guess the general things that you see, like you expect to see, like wizards and stuff like that. But you're really just kind of going around these little tiny levels, and you had to find treasure chests, and they always hide them behind a sprite. It's kind of boring that way, but if you like the story, it's really good. And if you like card battling, it reminds me of a game on the phones called Guilds of Dungeoneering, which is a really fun little game.
Sounds awful.
Oh no! So I got to talk about Guilds of Dungeoneering now. So Guilds of Dungeoneering is you are basically running a guild, and you are sending your guild people to their death all the time, and you're trying to get them through these caves to get treasure and loot, and it's all about building your guild system and buying like new, castle things that get you more cards essentially, and they all die, and there's like songs in Guilds of Dungeoneering about they're gonna die, they'll die, it'll be bad, stuff like that. It's really funny, and it reminds me a lot of this game. The Steamworld also has some interesting characters. I found this old lady called Madame Sinope, and she is living in a barrel.
She looks like she puts out.
Good lord. Well, I mean, she does tell you everything gyrates sooner or later.
I'm kidding.
But there's some interesting characters in the game. All right, but
after that, man, have you played as Joker on Smash yet? Because I haven't even updated my Smash.
Okay, Joker is good stuff. I've seen a lot of people play with Joker. He's very precise with some of his moves, like his up regular hit. People always want to say like up B or up A, but I play with the weirdest configuration in the world.
You do, man. I don't like it.
B is jump, Y is regular hit, X is special.
That's awful.
To me, it's like playing a Mario game is how I think of it in my head. So he's a good character, and he builds up this meter that brings this monster like in the background of him, and you play kind of as the monster, and you do more damage, but I think you take more damage. And he's got guns. My favorite part is because I'm a Kirby main, I like eating him, and then I have straight up Gangster Kirby, and he's like shooting from the side and whatnot.
Nice.
It's awesome. Gangster Kirby is best Kirby. And it ticks off people as Gangster Kirby because it like stops them for about a half second, and so they walk up to me being all gangster and whatnot, and then I throw a kick at them and they die. Nice. So after I shoot them, because legs are better than guns.
I'm still a little disappointed because when we got the announcement for Joker on Smash, I really thought they were going to put Persona on the Switch, and then we ended up just getting basically Persona Warriors. Have you seen this yet?
I have not seen this. What?
So I really thought that they were going to release Persona 5, like a special edition on the Switch. But it turns out they're doing a special edition that's only coming to PS4 as of right now. But the Persona that we're getting for Switch, I forget exactly what it's called. Maybe like Persona 5S, like something weird like that. But it's basically a Dynasty Warriors version of Persona.
How many freaking Dynasty Warriors games can we get on the Switch at this point that are like just another one? Like we have Fire Emblem, we have Zelda. I mean, I'm ready for Mario version.
Oh my god, I'll play the hell out of that.
Like 1,000 Goombas storming over the hills.
I'll play the hell out of that, man.
Man, we should work for Nintendo. Anyway, speaking of hordes of things like Goombas and monsters, you've been playing some Days Gone, man.
Yes, I'm about 10 hours into Days Gone, and they said it's a 60-hour game. And I started playing it, and I was like, wow, this map's not very big. How are you going to make 60 hours out of this game? And then the map expanded. Oh. I was like, oh, okay. So I see how this is going to...
Is it on the same level of like Xenoblade Chronicles X, where you start small and then it's like everything's gigantic?
I mean, I don't know how big it's going to get, but I've had the map increase in size once. But if I had to describe the game, it's not a very original game.
Okay.
It's very much. It's like playing as Daryl from The Walking Dead. I mean, you're on a bike. You're a biker. One of your main weapons you could have is a crossbow. You collect freaker ears. They're not called zombies. They're called freakers. You collect freaker ears and can turn those in for bounties. So it's kind of like how Daryl used to get zombie ears. But the game itself is a lot like Red Dead Redemption 2. Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of story into it and things like that. It's very fun. I have had so much fun playing this game. But my main gripe, there are a few glitches I've seen. I was trying to jump a ramp on my bike to get to a hidden area, and I kind of missed. And I hit a big rock. So you take a lot of damage, and your bike actually takes damage as well, and you have to repair it. But
sounds like my childhood.
My motorcycle kind of flew up into the air, and then I couldn't find it. Like, it was on my map, but it was nowhere near me. So then I go to where it is on the map, which is probably, I don't know, a football field's length away from me, maybe 100 yards. And I couldn't find it anywhere. Like, it's on my map, but I couldn't find it. So then I looked in a tree, and there it is. You can't climb trees in this game.
Oh, that's a problem.
I had to reload the game for that. That's the only main glitch that I've had. But what gets me is I'm a huge stickler for sound design in games. And there are a lot of times when the audio does not match the actors' mouths. And there are a lot of times when you'll have, somebody say on your radio that's talking, or your character is talking, but then somebody else will be talking over them. So you're right. I'm trying to read 2 sets of subtitles. So those are basically my main gripes. But besides that, it is a really fun game. And something I wanted to point out to Travis here is that
he's opening an iPad.
Well, yeah, I was gonna.
He's got things ready. He's gonna have notes.
I was gonna pull up reviews for this game because it's very down the middle. Metacritic's given it a 72, which is actually higher than I thought that it was going to be. IGN gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Ooh. When IGN gives you a 6, that's always a concern.
Well, and that was the thing. So I thought about it, and IGN gave Sekiro a 9.5, somewhere in there, and I don't like Sekiro. But then they gave Days Gone, a 6.5, and I really like it.
I love the spectrum of your Sekiro love to hate to absolute disdain.
I mean, I absolutely love the first few hours of it, and then it just got way too hard for somebody like me. I mean, I could see somebody who, if you love difficulty, Sekiro is your game.
If you love hating yourself,
yeah,
Sekiro is your game.
It's not for me. Like, I'm not that good at video games. I mean, I love video games and I play a lot, but I'm not that good. I'm playing Days Gone on easy. I mean, that's me now. But it brought up a good point of there are so many games out there that can have median scores, but can still be absolutely fun to play, even though they may have glitches and things like that. So it just really got me thinking about the whole review process in games and how, now that thinking back on it, review scores really aren't going to have much to do with if I'm going to play a game or not, unless it's like a 4 or something like that. Then I really look into it.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, I agree with you, because there are lots of games you play as a kid or when you're younger that you look back and people say, man, those games are terrible. And, according to all these snooty, gaming journalists, which I guess I shouldn't say much because we are just picking apart games here. There are a lot of games that are a little bit better than average, but you can still, if you like certain aspects of them, you can have a great time with them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of games that I would play that are in the 6 or 7 range that people would hate. Like, some RPGs and stuff like that. I don't know. I think the system where we are only looking for 9s and 10s is not feasible. It's not going to last forever, and I think we've kind of gone away with that because the only way to make a 9 or a 10 nowadays is to pay the big bucks to certain people, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, your 9s and 10s are only going to go to, your Grand Theft Autos, Red Dead Redemption, Zeldas, Marios, your big games like that. Those are going to be the only ones that really score that high just because they have a pedigree that goes with them.
Oh, yeah. They've killed the curve,
I mean, I think that's why Sekiro may have scored so high because, I mean, the game looks great. It controls great and everything. But I do believe that part of Sekiro's good scores had to do with the fact that it's from the was it From Software video games, and I mean the Dark Souls games are great. Bloodborne is an amazing PS4 exclusive. So I mean I think that has to do a lot with the score.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know, man. I mean,
people are looking for a cinematic experience on the games because honestly, there's not much cinematic going on in the movies right now, for the exception of maybe like Marvel movies, and there's a bunch of empty cinematic quality to a lot of movies now. So I guess that's where we're seeing the 9s and 10s really pop up, but not necessarily the game.
I don't know, man. There was a movie trailer that came out this week that made me really want to watch a movie.
What movie?
Sonic!
Oh, no!
Not really. I lied.
That's a big lie. Gosh. Oh, I got scared again. I got to look at a picture of this thing. Hold on one second. Okay, so I pulled up pictures. Oh, there it is again. That thing.
Oh, it's awful. It scares me.
Ugly.
It's going to be in my nightmares.
Man, okay, so I feel bad for this because, like, I teach constructive criticism. I'm going to try to constructively critique this thing that looks like it's a trip to the uncanny valley in the 7th level of furry fandom hell. But let's break down the thing. Sonic. First off, if you don't know what the uncanny valley is, it is essentially whenever you are creating something that is really close to being realistic, but it's a little off, and our brains kind of give an extra warning that something is wrong here.
Yeah, okay? I could see that with this.
So when you look at Sonic's eyes are very realistic, but they've been kind of pushed in a way to be unrealistic. The eyelids that you can see underneath are worrisome. It looks like this animalistic creature that could eat you, and what makes it even worse is it has human teeth in a place you don't expect human teeth. Okay, our brains are kind of wired to see things that we expect are human-esque, and when things are slightly off, our brains go, ooh. So, that's, I think, a big part of this is that Sonic has too many somewhat realistic aspects, especially his body. If you look at his body, it's lanky, it's almost human proportion. But things are done in such a weird way that it feels like it's shoehorned into a human body. And the nose and the mouth connection is really awkward. I mean, this is an ugly, hideous monstrosity in our brains because it's too close to what we would expect to be either human-esque, and it's bad.
Well, my main problem with it is they like you said, it does make it more humanized, where he does have a longer torso and shorter legs than he normally would. When we think of Sonic, we think of this little bitty torso with just some long legs because he runs fast. I mean, that's the main part of him. And this, like I said, I mean, he's got muscle definition. That's creepy.
Yeah. And it's too realistic. And if you look at actual designs of Sonic and the 3D versions of Sonic that are out there, one thing that I've seen some people complain about is the eyes. So Sonic's eyes are connected in his character design.
Oh, yeah.
The Sonic in this movie is not. They are separate and they are human-esque. And it's really scary. And of course, the character in the design has elongated kind of spikes to reference the fact that a hedgehog has spiky things. I have a hedgehog. I know what hedgehogs look like. And they're actually cute little boogers that have weird little noses, but they poop so much.
Oh.
Seriously. Just in case you didn't know. They have scary amounts of poop. Anyway, hopefully this thing does not poop like that.
Oh.
But this...
his spikes are furry.
His spikes are furry, and they're not all that spiky.
Ooh.
You know, and like I said, it looks like somebody that was like wearing a fursuit in a really creepy. Well, I mean, any fursuit to me is creepy, but you know, it looks really off. And you know, let's compare this and contrast this to Detective Pikachu, which uses a similar style. Detective Pikachu is doing the exact opposite thing. They are starting with the cartoon character and adding realism aspects, not starting with realism and adding cartoon aspects. So, while a cartoon Pikachu has cartoon eyes, they add things like reflection and the different colors in the eyes to make it somewhat realistic, but they never really alter the Pikachu form.
It doesn't look like somebody wearing a suit.
Right. And then you can see the artist is also playing around with certain characters. He will make more realistic to give us that kind of, oh, that's a scary little monster thing.
Yeah,
on
man,
purpose.
like Mr. Mime looks creepy as hell in there, but the one in Detective Pikachu that really gets me is Lickitung.
Oh, yeah.
That thing he looks slimy and nasty.
Looks like it's out of Resident Evil.
Oh my god. It's
Yeah,
like a
that thing
liquor.
hangs from the, yeah, it's a liquor.
Oh god.
But, you know, that's the thing. In the world of Pokemon, there are some creepy character designs.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for that character design. Whereas Sonic, it doesn't make sense for Sonic to be creepy. Sonic's supposed to be known as this, like, kind of, like, cheesy, really hip, cool character.
Yeah. Go fast, eat hot dogs.
Yeah, it's go ring. You know, I don't know what the heck they were thinking. And, you know, I think you also see, though, the difference in quality between these two brands, but also the people creating the movie and their concept artists, and probably more so than the concept artists, though, the directors and the people in charge of figuring out how they want this to look. The Pokemon movie looks good. It has better actors. The cinematography is better.
I'm gonna see it for sure.
Oh, dude. Yeah, we got to go see that in theater. And there is actual humor. And it looks like it's well laid out in the world is alive. Okay. And it's not so much a world that we live in. It's something more than that. Whereas the Sonic movie is the exact opposite. It has not very good actors. It has cheesy actors that you would consider cheesy. If you saw a normal movie, like to me, it looks like actors from like a Baywatch movie.
Well, it's got, what's his name? James Marsden. He's the guy who played.
Is that the main actor? Because
I think he's the main guy. He's done a whole lot of rom-coms and stuff like that. But a lot of people, especially people that listen to us, will probably remember him as Cyclops in the first few X-Men movies. It's got Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, which surprisingly, I actually kind of like where they went with Dr. Robotnik's design. I'm still not going to see this movie.
he needs to eat a lot of hot dogs though to look like Dr. Robotnik.
But what's sad is the main thing I like about this movie is they have Ben Schwartz playing Sonic's voice, and I mean that's pretty bad when the main thing you like about a movie is like, oh hey, you know, the trailer looks like trash, but I really do like that voice actor.
Yeah, and you know that's the thing. Like it's taking Sonic into our boring realism.
Yeah,
It's not a magical world. It's him coming to our world, and our world is a little too boring in this film, is what it looks like. So the crazy thing is the creator is actually changing the design of Sonic to retrofit in this movie somehow.
and this is where I have to play devil's advocate, because you know I'm probably not going to see this movie.
No.
It didn't really look all good to me. But the fact that I'm not sure how many people complain about this. I know it's a lot, but a lot of the times when people complain on the internet, it's the vocal minority, you know, compared to your silent majority. I don't know how many people out there actually liked the trailer and liked it for what it is. But it's a double-edged sword complaining about something so much that the creator will change it, because now the creator has compromised their vision of this movie. even if that vision's a turd, that was their vision of this movie. And it could be a double-edged sword later on. If people realize doing this, they can complain about all this kind of stuff and then get it changed, what's going to happen in the future for movies, video games, things like that? It's kind of like a couple of weeks ago when there was the whole argument about Sekiro having an easy mode. I don't know if I would go back and play Sekiro if there was an easy mode, but there were a whole lot of people that complained about it needing to be in there, and that's not what the creator wanted. The creator made a game that was meant to be hard. It was meant to be in the same vein as your Dark Souls and Bloodborne games. So this is where I kind of have to, like I said, I kind of have to play devil's advocate with the Sonic movie. He's compromising his vision, which for what all intents and purposes may just be the vocal minority.
And, you know, the thing that, to me, it sounds really weird to retrofit another character because you got to think of the technical aspects of this, which, in a way, it's really not that hard to re-texture a character that's 3D because there's obvious, like, rigging and things that go into play, kind of like a puppet on strings in a way, if you want to think about it ultra simply with how they do these movies. But if there's any change in height, or his proportions and how he reacts with the real world, they have to reshoot those parts. And I'm afraid it's going to make things a little awkward in different ways. To me, I kind of agree with you in some ways to where I think they should just go ahead and push this one out.
We've already seen what it looks like now. Why change it?
Right. I mean, you might as well just let this go. And there's a kinetic sculpture artist, and this is kind of getting highbrow and nerdy, I guess.
My name is Travis.
Yeah,
I know art.
So there's an artist named Anthony Howe, and he's a kinetic sculpture artist. And I was showing something in my classes recently, and one of the things that I make them listen to, like, I'm gonna make sure they're not asleep because it's a little snippet, and they want to fall asleep during those 5-minute videos, is that sometimes whenever you're making art, it's ugly and hideous, but you got to get through with it to know what you need to fix in the end. And to me, that's how I feel like they should treat Sonic in this, because right now they're going to be going back to an already just mangled thing that just needs to go ahead and exist and move on past it and then redo the whole thing. And I'm paraphrasing him essentially what I said earlier, but they just need to get away with it. Just needs to go away. Let this movie happen. Pay Jim Carrey his fee. Pay those other B-rate actors their fee.
And then reboot it in a couple of years.
Reboot it. I'm sure they wasted a ton of money because this is like the Fast and the Furious, guys that make the movie.
It's probably somebody who made like one of the weird.
I don't know. It is Fast and the Furious.
But yeah, they have like different directors and creators for different movies. Yeah. So it's probably one of the like Fast and the Furious like 3 or something like. What is it? 3 Fast, 3 Furious or whatever it's called.
Oh, is that? Oh,
that's not really what it was called, but that's what I always.
I think I've seen like parts of Fast and the Furious. Like
they're awful.
Maybe like at a hotel flipping through channels. It just. Anyway, but the thing that scared me the most about this whole thing,
what's that?
Wasn't the visuals, wasn't the scary monster Sonic. They chose Gangster's Paradise by Coolio to push this film and set the tone for this thing.
I forgot about that. Neither Coolio or Sonic are gangsters.
No. Like, what in the world were they thinking? Like, who are they trying to push this movie to? Because Gangster's Paradise was a song like, what, we were in junior high?
Oh my God.
So are they trying to sell this to people a little bit older than us? Or, like, who is the base audience for that song, which is not that good?
I mean, this movie is being pushed for people younger than us.
Yeah.
And the fact that people younger than us may have possibly never heard this song, because, I mean, the song's got a good hook, and it gets people in, but at the same time, my age group is pretty much just like, really?
And, some of these kids that'll be, like, little bitty that would go see this and be like, Grandma, y'all listening to that song?
Oh God. Oh God.
Yeah.
I just made me think about how I turn on the classics radio now, and there's songs that have been put out since I was alive that are now on classics radio.
Mm-hmm.
Old.
Dude, yeah, I don't care anymore. What's fun though is the songs I listen to now I'll never hear on radio ever. It'll be great.
Ugh.
You got to listen to Spotify and everything else to even hear music nowadays.
True.
But I think that's a topic for another day.
Definitely.
Maybe next time when we talk about our soundtracks.
Yeah, we're thinking about doing a special on video game soundtracks. Maybe put it out after this one. We'll see. We'll think about it.
We'll see if we're how dead we are inside after talking about Sonic.
Oh.
Okay, so Rowdy, I've been thinking.
About what, Travis?
I'm getting bored with some games, and long time ago, I made this decision to be a Nintendo gamer because I like the Nintendo games.
Yes.
So I missed a whole slew of systems that started with a P called PlayStation.
Yeah.
I didn't play the PlayStation 1. I didn't play the PlayStation 2. I definitely didn't play the PlayStation 3. I didn't own an Xbox. Didn't own an Xbone. Didn't own a 360 circle-y thing. I'm thinking about getting a PS4 Pro, but I need I need the encouragement. So should me, as an avid Nintendo nerd and PC gamer, is it worth my money to buy a PS4 Pro, or should I just continue playing it or wait for PS5? Because I'm definitely not getting an Xbone.
So I'm gonna try and bring this back to the beginning, to where
To the beginning.
about, I guess, the GameCube, PS2, Xbox era, original Xbox era is where everything.
Story, kid, about a long time ago.
Everything kind of started to split, whereas the next Nintendo system was the Wii, and they focused more on family games. They focused more on movement controllers and things like that. Whereas PlayStation and Xbox, went more for graphics. Mm-hmm. So it kind of split from there. And at that point, I had to have my Nintendo system, and then which other system am I going to have that has the more hardcore games, the more the better looking games, if you will. And so I had a PS2, and then my brother had an Xbox. And I liked Xbox, but the only really thing that I played on it was Halo at the time. And there was more stuff coming out for PlayStation that I wanted to play. Because at the time, let's see, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I think, had come out. And it was on PlayStation. It wasn't on Xbox at the time. Actually, I don't know if it's ever been released for Xbox. Maybe on their store or whatever. But I ended up becoming a Sony fanboy at the next generation, because I had an Xbox 360 first, and I got burned by the Red Ring of Death.
The Red Ring of Death.
That was freaking awful, man. I spent so much money on this Xbox 360, and then all this DLC that I'd put into it, Rock Band, all that junk, and then I got the Red Ring of Death, and I sent it back, and then when they sent it back to me, it was eating games. I would put a disc in it, and I would
seem to remember something about this.
I would hear a grinding sound, and I would take the CD out, and it would be scuffed and didn't want to work. And this is after they had fixed it.
I can imagine tech support. Well, did you feed it enough today?
So
It might be hungry.
I
Pour some water in it. That'll help.
I sold it and got the PS3, and I was hooked with the PS3 because of a lot of the first party games that it had on there. I love the Uncharted series. Absolutely amazing. And then one thing I think that you will like about Sony systems is it's not necessarily first party, and they're not always the only ones to get these games, but they're at least the first ones to get a lot of the JRPGs. Mm-hmm. I know you're a big fan of a lot of different JRPG type stuff. I know you really like the Xenoblade series, which is obviously Nintendo exclusive.
Now it is.
But there are a lot of JRPGs that come out for the PlayStation. Now, as of the PlayStation 4, I've had the original and the Pro. The games for this, or the first party games for this generation have been absolutely amazing. Uncharted 4 was amazing. The new God of War, absolutely freaking phenomenal. I'm currently playing Days Gone right now. Absolutely amazing. It's a first party game.
It's a 7 though.
Yeah, it's a 6.5.
6.5.
It's a 6.5. So as far as should you play things on computer versus PS4, I prefer doing it on the PS4 just because I prefer console gaming over PC gaming. My Steam library is basically games that I've played in the past that were just cheap, and I bought them just because I don't have the system anymore, or they were cheaper on Steam than they were on the console. I mainly buy everything for console first. Now, when it comes to the PS4 Pro as well, I have a 4K TV, but I have a computer that won't run 4K right now. You guys are gonna hate this. I run a laptop through an eGPU, so it's a quote unquote gaming laptop that's run through an eGPU that has a GTX 980 Ti. So it can run some pretty
Sounds
good
like a
games
rapper's name.
while it's plugged in. But on the PlayStation 4 is where I do my HDR gaming. It's not full 4K. And in the two different modes that you have for the PS4, I call them, I guess it would be performance mode and HDR mode. So performance mode, you could take any of these games that have HDR capability and lower them to 1080p, and they work phenomenally. You have faster load times. They still look great because it's 1080p, but I want to say it's 1080p 60 frames per second. So it looks real good. You're not gonna have you're not gonna have as much screen drop, things like that. They also have a boost mode that I looked up recently. Games that were released prior to the PS4 Pro, where before they started putting HDR graphics in it, you could actually boost those.
I remember when computers used to have the boost buttons. It's gonna add an extra like 0.25 megahertz.
But I can remember playing some games on PC where you hit boost mode and then the games just started moving faster, and that was it.
Yeah. Street Fighter 2 Turbo? I don't know. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I have a feeling it's going to be this summer.
So the HDR mode, there hasn't been many games that I've just absolutely had to play in HDR mode. Uncharted 4 was one. I played Far Cry 5 in HDR mode, and the new God of War. It looked absolutely phenomenal. So basically, anything that's a Sony first title is going to look absolutely amazing in HDR mode.
Gotcha.
Now, Days Gone, I've been playing in HDR mode, but it looks like a game that would honestly look good in 1080p with 60 frames per second. So I'm thinking about changing it to performance mode to play it. Now, I will bring up some of the cons. It isn't as powerful as the Xbox One X.
Yeah, but really, what can you play on Xbox One X that you can't play on a PC?
Halo? No, that's coming to PC.
See? So I already got a decent, GPU. That's why I'm not even looking at the Xbone.
Yeah, okay.
That's not even in like my thought processes, because what probably is actually making me think about getting a PS4 Pro is all the old school PS2, PS1 games that are coming to the Switch right now, like the Final Fantasies and whatnots. And that's kind of why I'm like, I did miss out on some stuff.
Now, in the future, there's still a bunch of good games that are come out on the PS4 as well, because the PS5 is not going to come out for still a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But oh god! So another con I just thought about, in HDR mode, you will have a little bit slower loading times.
I can live with loading time.
It's not too bad. I've never had any in-game lagging because of it. Oh, I also forgot, HDR mode is as close to 4K. I don't know the exact resolution that it can do, but it's close to 4K, but it's only 30 frames. Okay. Whereas when they do the 1080p, it's 60 frames.
Okay, so you can kind of choose performance or, kind of like they have in the Switch version of Rocket League.
Yes.
You can pick mode where it's worth playing that at 60 frames or not. To me, I wish, going back to the Switch, Yoshi had that mode, because I don't care if that game's at 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
30 frames would be fine as long as they made the graphics just a little bit better.
I thought it looked good.
Yeah, I'm picky.
But to me, and actually to you, I think the biggest con might be that Sony just doesn't play well with others. I mean, it took, just an act of God to get them to play nice with Fortnite.
Oh, yeah.
It was just recently that they decided that you can move all of your stuff from system to system, including PS4 now. But that's pretty much it when it comes to Sony not playing well with others.
So I guess the next thing I need to ask is, we have the PS5 coming out. They haven't released a time frame on that, have they? They said it won't be next year, right?
There's a bunch of rumors. From the rumors so far, I can see that the earliest it coming out is November 2020.
Okay.
But it looks like it may be either March 2021 or November 2021, because March and November are always the big release dates, because March is right before summer and November is Christmas time.
Right, where the money's at.
And now PS4, they've released, PS5, they've released dev kits for it so far.
Right.
So we're not 100% sure if this is what's going to be in the final version, but we're about to throw a lot of numbers at you. Now, a lot of the internal specs are modeled, if I'm not mistaken, after AMD components.
I like me some AMD.
AMD's good. I've always had NVIDIA just because it's easier to get. It's actually cheaper, too.
Yeah, I personally bought AMD products because I always read that the CPUs worked a little bit better with graphical programs like Photoshop and Illustrator. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of been the people whispering what's better or not. But yeah, in my brain's going blank. Sorry.
Well, another one of the rumors that they were talking about is the resolution. Apparently, it's going to go up to 8K, which the highest thing I've ever heard filmed in HD or in 8K or made in 8K was actually the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy.
Yeah, to me though, the 8K thing is such a non-important thing to focus on.
But 120 frames per second at 8K.
120 frames per second, sure. At 8K, sure. If they're doing like Nintendo 64 level, polygons and textures, whatever. You look at VR games right now running on insanely complex GPUs that are going to be much more than what this thing's pushing out.
Yeah. That
just look like an older system, like a gen or two back. There's at a point, the 4K, beyond the 4K is not that important. Now, I can also think whenever people argue that beyond 10p to 4K wasn't that important, but we can barely push out games in modern graphics at 4K on much stronger hardware right now. Granted, of course, they'll be coded directly for that one machine, but I don't think that we're going to see the jump to 8K also because we're just now really getting things to be in 4K. YouTube is sometimes putting things out in 4K. Your movies are, but they're having a heck of a time with that.
Oh, yeah.
The games can't even really do much more than 2K and run really well at the moment. And there hasn't been any push to really get 8K out there. Like, there's only a couple of TVs that really are like 8K.
And they're not in my price range.
And if you look at what's been leaked, okay, so we're looking at And all these numbers sometimes don't really matter because there's more to it nowadays than just gigahertz and cores.
But the teraflops!
The teraflops are where it's at. How you use them teraflops.
I was trying to think of your mom joke just now.
Oh yeah, there's your mom joke there, but this anyway. So if you look at what they are saying, they say it's going to be more power than the Google Stadia. They say right now that it's going to have twice as many teraflops as an RX 480, which is your entry-level GPU for VR gaming. Okay, which nowadays the problem is the GPU isn't always the concern in a lot of these games. It's the CPU, because there's so much complexity going on, especially like in the Assassin's Creed games. You had to have a CPU of a certain quality or it just destroyed the game.
Well, that's something I want to point out, because with my gaming rig, my GPU is powerful. CPU not so much. So my games look great. Sometimes they lag.
And it messes with the frame rate. And that's actually why I like the idea of the laptop and the external GPU, but I never went that route because I know the CPUs are so demanding nowadays. Now, we have a problem too, to where power, like double the power of A, B, or C, doesn't necessarily mean double the graphical clarity or parity. If you look at games coming out right now that are built with, scaling down in mind for what the systems are running, you look at Mortal Kombat 11, which is a great looking game. But they can run that game on the Switch with some graphical parity that is not too bad, honestly.
No.
And a lot of people are making that choice. Well, do I want to get it on this system, or do I want to get it on the Switch where I can go and play it elsewhere? And go to school with, heads flying everywhere, I guess. But, because, I've been hearing, by the way, sad thing. I was listening to like fourth graders in line outside my room. It was for another classroom. And I kept hearing them go, I've been watching on YouTube and I saw this, and this Mortal Kombat fatalities. I'm just like, oh God, no. And I'm just thinking, I've played Mortal Kombat in fourth grade.
Exactly. That's how you learn the word fatality.
Yeah, fatality.
I didn't know what that word meant before Mortal Kombat.
I think we've talked about this last time too. The difference between Mortal Kombat back in our day and nowadays is today it's hardcore realistic, whereas back in our day you saw about 20 femurs flying out of Reptile's head whenever you uppercut it. There was a level of unreality within that game. But anyway, so going back to the idea that the GPUs sometimes aren't as necessary in a way, because really we're seeing a lot of interesting tech where developers are able to hide lack of geometry or lack of texturing with other processes. And a lot of that comes from our mobile gaming becoming, people thought that people were going to be all about playing games on their cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
That really didn't happen. I mean, there are people that make tons of money off of these little games, but honestly, they rarely use the horsepower necessary.
Oh, yeah.
So there's been just millions, if not billions of dollars into tech that's for running games on mobile software. And Nintendo was really smart in swooping that, up. But we got kind of lucky, so now we can run these massive games on much cheaper hardware. But I don't know.
Well,
we'll see.
With the whole Mortal Kombat 11, I actually found myself thinking, what system do I want to get this on? I haven't picked it up yet. Because, I have a PS4 Pro, and this is a game that will run in HDR. But at the same time, every review and performance I've seen for it working on the Switch is it runs 1080p in docked mode, 720 in, portable mode or whatever it's called. And there hasn't been much of a decrease in performance in portable mode. And I like to bring my Switch with me pretty much everywhere I go. So why not get it on Switch for this kind of game?
And if I owned a PS4, like in my head, I know I would probably get it to play on the PS4 myself because I like the graphical clarity of the game, but at the same time, I'm not really a big Mortal Kombat fan, so I'm not going to get it. You know,
it's a
I'll play it when you get it. I was always a Team Street Fighter. You know, just kind of going back to the, you know, thinking about this stuff and me wanting a PlayStation and getting over the walls I put up in my heart. You know where that really comes from, now that I'm thinking about it, is the Sega versus Nintendo advertising campaigns that really kind of created fanboyism.
Hey, have you, a side note, have you seen the dirty Sega ads?
Probably.
There were, like, I want to say it was in the UK. They put out these ads on Sega. They were in like adult-oriented magazines.
No.
That was PlayStation.
Okay.
But this was the Sega Genesis era, and they would put like a picture of like a naked woman, but then like cover the breasts and everything with like pictures of Sega games. Oh, it was awful advertising.
Oh man, it sounds like the people that were in charge of that are in charge of the new Sonic movie.
Oh, they were trying to low blow everything.
Okay. So now that we've kind of talked about the PS5, aren't there some rumors as to what games will be on it coming out?
I mean, you're definitely going to have the Sony exclusives. I mean, there's probably going to be a new Uncharted, God of War, all that kind of stuff. But the biggest rumor I've heard so far is that Grand Theft Auto 6 will have 1 month exclusivity on the PlayStation 5. Now, the reason why that's so big is that if it comes out during the holiday season, if it comes out in November of 2020 or 2021, and Grand Theft Auto 6 has 1 month exclusivity, that is a system seller right there.
Oh man, that's going to push so much, because we've talked about it in the past. Grand Theft Auto 5 sold way too much.
It's the highest selling franchise of all time. If you can add up all the money made from Star Wars, every single Star Wars movie. I don't know about adding the toys and all that in, but if you add up all the sales from every single Star Wars movie, it doesn't come close to just Grand Theft Auto 5.
And if you look at, we were talking about this one too, all the games of Capcom and their sales don't match the sales of Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly.
I mean, that's an incredible thing. Now, what I'm curious to see is if we're ever going to see Grand Theft Auto 5 on the Switch, because I think that would be insane in its own right. But it sounds like Sony is pushing some money over.
Well, I mean, it's a possibility because Grand Theft Auto 5 started on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3.
Oh no, it's completely doable.
That's where I first played the game.
Yeah.
I actually played it and beat it before PS4, Xbox One came out. And I love the game. It's a great story. Rockstar they're really good at what they do. Mm-hmm. Stories, open world, things like that. They're really good at it. And that's why I really think that this is going to be a huge, huge system seller, especially if it's in the holiday season, man. People love Grand Theft Auto.
Now, to me, the Grand Theft Auto 6 exclusivity is kind of, in a way, a dirty move, though, if they do this. Mm-hmm. But Sony is kind of underhanded nowadays. In a lot of, I'm starting to think, are they beginning to turn into early 90s Nintendo, which eventually brought the company down with their stubborn-headedness and sort of protectionist ways of doing things, which I can understand.
A lot of people didn't know this, but like in the early 90s, like when Nintendo was on top of the world, and then there was the whole Sega versus Nintendo thing. Nintendo wanted to know, what can we do to get on top of everything? Mm-hmm. So they decided they were going to partner with Sony, and they were trying to make a new system. Was it an add-on for the Super Nintendo?
It was an add-on that essentially, like on the prototypes, it looks like it sat on top or bottom. I don't know, but either way, it was an add-on. If you ever look at the older Nintendo systems, always had like an extension thing.
Yes,
because back in the day, games, you look at the old NES games, they could incorporate like extra processing power in the cartridges, and they had more of an idea of the fact that technology is constantly improving.
Yes.
Whereas like double the power nowadays is not as impressive on a graphical scale as it used to be. Double the power back then was usually a pretty massive leap. So they had this sort of modularity built into their system. So that's kind of what happened with the the Nintendo PlayStation.
Yeah. So basically, Nintendo didn't really like what Sony was trying to do with everything. Sony had put all this money into helping Nintendo out and trying to make this new add-on, and Nintendo decided, screw you, we're going to go our own way and ditch the whole process. So then the Nintendo PlayStation, as it was dubbed, then became the Sony PlayStation. And in that generation, you had the Nintendo 64, the Sega Saturn, and the PlayStation 1. And this was one of the first huge blows to Nintendo because, I remember the Nintendo 64 being an amazing system, but I never really played much PS1, and the 64 didn't sell that well. Whereas the PS1 has massive sales numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And then when it came to the generation after that, it was Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo GameCube, and PlayStation 2. And it absolutely devastated Sega to the point where they just hemorrhaged and became a game company and stopped making systems.
Oh, yeah. Without Sony jumping in, we might still have Sega hanging around.
It's true. And then the GameCube, which I thought was a great system, but they decided to go with the smaller discs. They couldn't put as much... or they couldn't put
storage.
as much storage on the cartridges or on the CDs as PlayStation 2 could. And also didn't know this till recently, the PlayStation 2 is actually the highest selling system of all time, barely in front of the Nintendo DS, but the greatest selling home console of all time. It's ridiculous how many it sold. So when Nintendo kind of decided to do this little underhanded deal and then kicked them off to the side, Sony kind of kicked them around a little bit.
They did some other underhanded stuff too that is more akin to what we see with Sony nowadays, kind of forcing games to be on their system or not connect to other systems. You look at the licensing structure of Nintendo, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Nintendo licensed products were about quality because you dealt with unofficial products that would possibly mess up a system, or the games weren't playable, in Atari days and television
days. Well, there was the old school Nintendo seal of quality.
Oh, yeah. And that Nintendo seal of quality also, though, kind of forced certain people to follow certain rules and regulations. You look at, going back to Mortal Kombat, there were certain things they couldn't do with censorship because it had that Nintendo licensing. Otherwise, they couldn't officially sell it and have Nintendo's blessing, I guess you could say.
The blood in Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo was actually changed to sweat.
Yeah, and I think they released another version later on with the blood.
because the Sega's version had blood in it, and it was the higher seller. So then they updated it and resold it with the blood in it.
And there were other things as far as Nintendo setting up special deals with who could sell products, and they couldn't sell product from A, B, and C if you were selling Nintendo products. There was a lot of behind the scenes going on because Nintendo was, and as most businesses do, they were trying to kind of monopolize the gaming world. In some ways, if it wasn't for Nintendo, after the giant crash of Atari, just an ET type games and junk that people were coming in, and Nintendo putting these quality things in place, we probably wouldn't have gaming in the same way we do now. However, it did start making an issue towards the Super Nintendo days, where they became way too protectionist, where they were really focusing on they were going to be the only game in town, and they had to beat out Sega. Now, they kind of ticked off Sony, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
They made a deal in '88. They were supposed to be releasing an add-on. So this was for years they were going to add on the Sony thing. And Nintendo basically, figuratively gave them the middle finger and walked away.
Yeah.
So Sony has this product that they've designed, they've developed it CD-ROM based, and they were going to push that out. Might as well. I mean, you spent tons of money on the development of it. Where do you get your money back? And that's kind of the thought process. And the fallout from this is the fact that we then started having cartridge versus CD-ROMs.
Oh, yeah.
And this was where gaming changed, because storage was so hard to come by whenever it is dealing with physical discs. Whereas on a CD-ROM, which I'm still physical, of course, you could fit so much more. So you no longer had storage limitations hindering the artist. You might have like some graphical issues because PlayStation 1 games look terrible.
Yeah.
But you could fit in full motion videos, which we call cutscenes or stuff. I mean, back then we called them F&V, that really were just mind blowing to people.
You whippersnappers and your cutscenes.
So, and you had more load times, but honestly, you were there to watch the movies and stuff like that. It really wasn't that bad. So you see like Nintendo coming back at it with trying to do pre-rendered so they could have it kind of look like some of these things. But, after that point, though, Nintendo's kind of overly stringent policies forced other companies to eventually go to PlayStation, where they had a little bit more freedom on what they could do. You look at Square, and Square used to be all about Nintendo. They were going to release Final Fantasy VII for Nintendo on the Nintendo 64.
Yep.
And there are images out there that you can see that it's a very Nintendo 64 like 3D quality to it, which to me always looks better than PlayStation 1.
But they couldn't have done all the FMVs.
Bingo. And if you play Final Fantasy games from those time periods, they're all about the FMV.
Oh, yes.
So, and the music. The music capabilities were much better, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah.
But that, that caused a big schism, separation of sense, between Nintendo. And they had just worked on a massive RPG before this happened, with Super Mario RPG. Legend
of the Seven Stars.
Legend of the Seven Stars. Yeah, anyway.
That's what it was.
And there's all these characters that are in a graveyard somewhere, I guess, that came from that game that are actually somewhat owned by Nintendo and Square.
So Nintendo can't put them out because of that.
Oh yeah. And that was an amazing game.
I loved it. It's one of my favorites of all time.
Oh yeah, and honestly, and I'm going to get some people that I could think of really mad at this, I liked it better than the Paper Mario series.
I will stab you.
I mean, I thought it was better in some ways. I thought it had some interesting characters. Now, at the same time, I feel like I've been paper cut by all the recent all the recent Marios. Because the last one was terrible.
I haven't liked Paper Mario in a few years, but the original ones were real good.
Oh yeah. So and Thousand Year Door was like the big one that I still hear people talking about.
That was the best one.
Oh yeah, it was good. But also you're a big fan of the company that really got bit by this was Capcom.
Yes. I played Resident Evil 2 on the Nintendo 64, and one thing you have to think about is imagine a game that takes place on 2 CD-ROMs. At the time, I want to say they were 800 megabytes apiece. So up to 1,600 megabytes of data on 2 CDs. But Resident Evil 2 was on 1 cartridge for the Nintendo 64. So think about all the video compression, all of the audio compression that had to go into this to fit on that disc, and or to fit on that cartridge, and it really suffered. But one thing that really got to me is if you play the first Tony Hawk game, the PlayStation version had full CD quality audio of the songs, where, again, when it comes to the Nintendo 64, it's all compressed onto that cartridge. And the main thing I noticed is when you listen to the song Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus, he
was going way too fast.
Well, in the Nintendo 64 version, there's no vocals, and there's only one specific part of the song that gets repeated over and over again. And that's real monotonous when it comes to a Primus song.
And, you know, and part of that too is not only the storage, but it's also because of Nintendo's constant censorship of their games. Because Capcom was really affected by this. I mean, you look at the games they were starting to put out with Resident Evil.
They were gory and nasty.
Final Fight games actually had a really big problem with it. I was watching a good video on a Final Fight series and its differences between America and Japan and different systems. I mean, there's some wild stuff in the Final Fight series that you really need to look into. As far as like dealing with how the clothes that they wear in different scenes, the characters and how they're called. Like there's actually a transsexual character that in the Nintendo version was not called a transsexual. And all sorts of interesting little details about the Final Fantasy series.
Final Fight.
Final Fight. Big difference there. But you know what the biggest thing to me was in all this that we lost?
What was that?
The buttons. Why the heck did they put squares, triangles, an X out of nowhere because they're playing tic-tac-toe with their buttons? I can't brain that. That does not make sense to me. That's, I think, the biggest problem why I never really wanted to go to a PlayStation, because that hurts me.
Well, my whole thing is, I think that had to do with, obviously it had to do with copyrights. Because if you look at all the systems now, Xbox may still have an A, B, X, Y, but they're reversed.
Well, they're the right way, technically.
Weak.
They're the wrong way, but they're the technically right way. Like A and B is in order instead of BA like Nintendo does.
But then on like all the shoulder buttons, so on Switch, you have was it RL and then ZR and ZL?
Yeah. That comes from the Z trigger from the Nintendo 64 days.
So then on the PlayStation, you have R1, R2, L1, L2. And then in Xbox, you have, right bumper, left bumper, right trigger, left trigger. So it has to do a lot with copyrights. And I think that PlayStation was just trying to distance themselves so much from it and didn't realize how hard it was to type in cheat codes on the internet when you have to spell out a square and circle every time.
Kind of stuff. Oh gosh, man, that's terrible. I didn't have to deal with these things as a kid. This doesn't, like, to me, this is like, oh man, could you imagine working for those game companies? Like, you remember Tips and Tricks magazine?
Yeah.
You could go down to Walmart and, dude, that was the best thing about like going to Walmart with your parents back in the day, because they'd have Tips and Tricks magazine, and they'd never buy that magazine for you, but it didn't matter because your parents would be like, "Hey kid, we're going to save some money here. You're going to go ahead and take this piece of paper and a pencil with you next time and just write everything down." At least that's how my parents were. We'd save some money on those magazines. Those poor people for putting out those compendiums of just cheats and cheats and cheats and codes. So. Man, that's terrible. So, yeah, I guess that's about it for today. Is there anything else you can think about the storied past of PlayStation that I missed and Nintendo not getting along?
No, nothing I can think about it. All I know is I'm definitely getting a PS5.
See, I don't know if I'm getting a PS4 Pro yet, man. I'm going to have to see a sale. That's what's going to get me.
You've probably got a couple years left of the PS4 Pro.
Yeah, I probably do. And also, another thing that I'm waiting for is to see if they release a Nintendo Switch Pro, because I've got to get one for me, and my wife is getting the OG. Because she's not going to care. She's just going to play Stardew Valley in the dark somewhere.
My wife's just going to play Animal Crossing the whole time.
Oh, dude, whenever Animal Crossing comes out, we're going to need a second Switch.
Yeah, no, I'm totally buying a second one just for it.
Oh, yeah.
Just so my wife can play it.
Right now, the rumors are saying that they are going to talk about the Nintendo Switch Mini at E3 rather than the Pro, that's somehow been pushed back, and I'm sad. All right, well, I think that is it for the day. Thank y'all for listening. Follow us on the Twitters.
Yes. And I also want to point out that on Twitter, in the next coming weeks, we are going to start putting out game codes for free games. Still trying to decide if we're just going to make them like mystery codes or if we're actually going to say what the games are. But Let us know what you think. Hopefully this week we'll start putting out the first set of codes. See if people snatch those up. I guess that's it for me.
And retweet us, dudes. And also, we're on Facebook, we're on Minds, we're on YouTube, and you can find us online at our Transistor website. So follow Lamers Gamers Cast, and we will see y'all next time.
All right, have a good one, guys.